Amara was the pride of her parents. A brilliant and ambitious girl, she had always dreamed of becoming a lawyer and lifting her family out of poverty. Her parents, Mr. and Mrs. Okafor, worked tirelessly. Her father as a bricklayer and her mother as a petty trader, just to ensure she got an education. Though life was hard, they never gave up on their daughter, believing that her intelligence and determination would lead her to success. When Amara gained admission to a prestigious university, her parents rejoiced, sacrificing even more to pay for her tuition and living expenses. But things took a different turn when she met Gina and Tasha, two flashy girls known for their extravagant lifestyles. Unlike Amara, who had grown up with struggles, they came from wealthy backgrounds and spent their nights partying, drinking, and clubbing. At first, Amara resisted their influence, but the allure of their world was too tempting. She envied their expensive clothes, designer bags, and the way people admired them. Slowly, she began skipping classes to follow them to parties. What started as an occasional outing became a habit: late nights, alcohol, and relationships with rich men who spoiled them with money and gifts. Her studies suffered. The brilliant girl her parents had struggled to educate was no longer interested in school. She failed exams, missed lectures, and eventually dropped out without telling her family. Instead of returning home, she continued her reckless lifestyle, living off men who only saw her as a temporary pleasure. Her parents heard rumors and tried to warn her, but she refused to listen. "I know what I'm doing," she would say. "I'll be fine." But she wasn't fine. Her reckless choices led to multiple unplanned pregnancies, each followed by painful and secret abortions. The procedures weakened her body, but she kept going, lost in a world that only offered temporary happiness. Abandoned by her friends, Amara woke up one morning thinking if she should change her lifestyle. She sat on the edge of her bed in a small rented apartment far from the university she once attended. The room, once filled with excitement and laughter, now felt suffocating. The loud music from the club next door no longer thrilled her. She was exhausted, her body weak from yet another abortion. Shaken back to reality, she pushed the thoughts away. She had made her choices, and there was no turning back. Gina and Tasha, her closest friends, had moved on. They now had richer boyfriends, new clothes, and better connections. Amara, however, was struggling. The men who once lavished her with money and attention were now distant, uninterested in a girl whose beauty was fading under the weight of her reckless lifestyle. One evening, as she applied makeup in front of the cracked mirror, she received a call from her mother. Amara hesitated before answering. "Amara, my daughter, how are you?" Her mother's voice was filled with hope. "I'm fine, Mama," she said, though her voice lacked the energy it once had. "When are you coming home? Your father and I miss you. Your lecturers came looking for you. You can still return to school, my child. It's not too late." Amara's throat tightened. She wanted to believe her mother, to imagine a life where she could start over, but she knew it wouldn't be easy. "Mama, I'll come home soon," she lied before hanging up. Days turned into weeks, and Amara fell deeper into despair. Without money, she started borrowing from friends, but they soon turned their backs on her. She took on men she once wouldn't have considered, lowering her standards just to survive. The guilt and shame became unbearable. One fateful night, after an argument with a man who refused to pay her for the night, she ran into the streets, desperate and alone. She felt sick, her stomach cramping, her vision blurry. She collapsed in front of a small pharmacy, clutching her belly as pain ripped through her. Someone called an ambulance. At the hospital, the doctor's face was grim. "You've done too many unsafe abortions. Your body is failing, Amara. You need to stop before it's too late." Tears filled her eyes. "I want to go home," she whispered. But did she still have a home to return to? Would her parents forgive her? Would she ever get another chance at life? For the first time in years, she truly wished she had listened. Amara lay on the hospital bed, staring at the white ceiling, her mind racing. The doctor's words echoed in her head. "Your body is failing. You need to stop before it's too late." A nurse entered, adjusting the 4-drip attached to her arm. "You have a visitor," she said gently. Amara's heart pounded. Who could it be? Gina and Tasha had abandoned her, and the men she once depended on had long moved on. To her shock, her mother walked in, her face lined with worry and exhaustion. Behind her stood Amara's father, his hands clasped together tightly. Mama. Papa. Amara whispered, shame flooding her. She couldn't meet their eyes. Her mother rushed to her side, tears spilling down her cheeks. My daughter, what have you done to yourself? She sobbed, taking Amara's frail hand in hers. Amara's father remained silent, his expression unreadable. But his eyes, those once hopeful eyes, were filled with disappointment and pain. I'm sorry, Amara choked out. I didn't listen. I thought I had time. Her mother wiped her tears. You are alive, Amara. That is enough. But you must change. You must leave this life before it destroys you completely. For the first time in years, Amara truly listened. After a few days of recovery, she was discharged from the hospital and taken back home. The journey was silent, but she could feel the weight of her father's sadness in every breath he took. Home was nothing like the flashy world she had once chased. The walls were still old, the furniture simple, but it was filled with something she had lost, love. Her younger siblings ran to her, their innocent joy making her heart ache. She had missed so much. Days passed, and Amara began her journey to redemption. It wasn't easy. She had lost her place in school, and many people in the community whispered about her past. But she refused to give up. With the help of her parents, she sought counseling and found strength in faith and self-respect. One day, she visited the university, pleading for a second chance. After many appeals, she was given the opportunity to restart her education. This time she didn't waste it. Years later, Amara graduated with honors. She stood on the stage receiving her degree, and spotted her parents in the crowd, their faces beaming with pride. Tears filled her eyes, not of sadness but of gratitude. She had almost lost everything, but she had been given another chance. And this time she would never take it for granted. After her graduation, Amara felt a deep sense of fulfillment, but she also knew that her journey was far from over. While she had earned her degree, she carried the scars of her past, both physical and emotional. However, she was determined to turn her painful experiences into something meaningful. With the unwavering support of her parents, Amara applied for internships and soon secured a job at a non-profit organization that focused on mentoring young girls and advocating against unsafe abortions and reckless lifestyles. She knew firsthand how easy it was to be lured into temptation and how difficult it was to escape its grip. Her work took her to schools, slums, and rural communities, where she shared her story, not as a cautionary tale meant to shame, but as a testimony of hope and redemption. She met young girls who reminded her of her former self, brilliant yet vulnerable, ambitious yet easily swayed. She saw in them the same desperation for acceptance that had once led her astray. One day, after speaking at a girls' secondary school, a timid girl named Nkechi approached her. "Miss Amara," she whispered, "I was about to make the same mistakes you did. But after hearing your story, I know I need to change before it's too late." "Thank you." Amara's heart swelled with emotion. If her past could help even one girl avoid the pain she had endured, then perhaps everything she had suffered had not been in vain. Years passed, and Amara's impact grew. She started her own foundation, providing scholarships and mentorship to underprivileged girls, ensuring they had the guidance she once lacked. She also reconciled fully with her father, who had struggled to forgive her past mistakes. When he finally embraced her one evening and said, "You have made me proud," she knew she had truly found redemption. One day, standing in front of a packed auditorium, Amara shared her story once more. This time, she did not speak from a place of shame, but from strength. She was a living proof that no matter how far one falls, it is always possible to rise again. As the audience erupted in applause, Amara smiled, knowing that her journey had come full circle. The girl who had once been lost had found her purpose, and this time she was never letting it go. As Amara's influence grew, so did her impact. She traveled across the country, working with schools, churches, and youth organizations to educate young girls about the dangers of reckless choices and the importance of self-worth. She wrote a book detailing her journey, her rise, fall, and redemption, which became a bestseller, inspiring thousands. Despite her success, Amara remained humble. She never forgot the nights she had cried herself to sleep, the pain of rejection, and the shame that once consumed her. Every time she stood before a group of young girls, she saw her past self in them, full of dreams but vulnerable to the wrong influences. One day, while visiting a rehabilitation center for young women, she met a familiar face. Gina, the friend who had once introduced her to the fast life. Gina was frail, her once glowing skin now pale, her eyes dull with regret. Tears filled Gina's eyes as she whispered, "Amara, I should have listened when you left. I lost everything." Amara sat beside her and held her hand. "It's never too late, Gina. If I could rise again, so can you." She helped Gina find counseling and a fresh start, just as she had been given a second chance years ago. That moment solidified Amara's purpose, not just to share her story but to help others find their way back, just as she had. Years later, Amara stood at a university graduation ceremony, not as a student but as a guest speaker. She looked at the young faces before her and took a deep breath. "I once thought my life was over," she began. "But I learned that no mistake is final unless you refuse to rise again. If you ever find yourself lost, remember, it's never too late to change." As the audience applauded, Amara looked up, whispering a silent prayer of gratitude. She had been given a second chance, and she had used it to change lives. Her journey had been painful, but in the end, it had led her to something far greater than she had ever imagined, a life of purpose, redemption, and hope. Thank you all for watching. If you enjoyed this beautiful story, please drop a like on the video and leave a comment on your favorite part of the story, moral lessons, character acts, and so on. Also share the story with your friends and family. It has not been easy getting here, but I really appreciate all of you who watched the story to the end. Do subscribe to my channel, Folktales by Queen Mother, and please on your notification button so that you can always know when another new interesting video is released. Thank you.